What are the other key decisions you made that were really great?
I like working for myself. I like being a founder. I need a great co-founder, and I'm going to try to find the right person, and then we're going to try to find the right idea.
We were talking earlier about like compatibility before even competence.
If I had a co-founder that was incompetent, it would make us incompatible.
There's playbooks for raising capital at these various points of inflection.
Yes.
And then there's an industry overlay.
That's totally true. For us, the big thing, we're trying to raise $7 million. And it was like, nobody's taking you seriously because nobody raises $7 million out of the gates.
So Bob, thanks for joining me today, man.
My pleasure to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you. You and Daniel are building the first fully licensed pro-life health insurance company with Presidio.
That's it, man.
And I'm excited to dive into that and all what you've learned in the building process and how you're living an integrated life throughout that.
All right, let's get into it.
But you came from the healthcare industry, so this wasn't a new space for you.
That's right.
And Daniel was an actuary. You've got the legal background. You're in the mix. You got a safe salary. You're working your corporate job. Can you just take me back to those first conversations with Daniel? And when did you think it was real? Because he's got the visionary bent a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what actually happened?
So even before that, I think this is important to understand, is we knew each other from church and from a men's group. Actually, the funny story is my wife and I got totally knocked out with COVID, like back, like the early day, like the first year of COVID. And we had, I think at the time we had 4 kids. And I remember like, we were so sick. It was like, how are we we might have to go admit ourselves to the hospital just so somebody can take care of our kids. And some stranger from church dropped off a care package. She didn't even know us. And it had like games for the kids and snacks and
because she knew you were sick.
Because she knew we were sick, just from like the mom's group. Turns out it was Daniel's wife. So that's how we got like,
Praise God.
Just a wonderful, beautiful family and then later on, I met Daniel through a men's group, and the men's group, a lot of things men talk about in the men's group is like, how do you integrate your faith with your career? And I'm kind of struggling because I'm at a big law firm and I'm working a lot of hours, and it feels like it's taking me away from my family. And Daniel and I kind of connected there because I'm like, shoot, here's another guy who's operating at the peak of his professional life. Like he's not just, showing up to work, clocking in, clocking out, trying to, get by. He's doing big things and taking big swings in the healthcare industry.
Yes.
Which I know, because I'm in the healthcare industry, is can be a hostile place to work and a hostile industry to work in as a Catholic. Not that people are like out to get you or something like that, but it's just, there's an undertone of, for example, abortion is healthcare. That's a given in the industry, right? Mm-hmm. And to be in an environment where you don't believe that, you believe that abortion is murder, it just takes a toll on you. So it can be a hard space to be in. So right out of the gates, my initial introduction to Daniel was, here's a guy who's serious about living his faith and who's also operating as he's a high functioning professional. Like this guy is getting it in this space in our industry. Yes. So that was the backdrop, the foundation was
so
kind
you
of
knew him from a
character.
You knew him from a character and a spiritual sense before you knew him from a professional sense.
Yeah, for probably like a year or two.
Yeah.
And then Presidio was really all Daniel's idea. I mean, and he had to convince me actually. I kind of joke about it, but it's actually I'm serious. This is what happened is he said, I'm thinking about creating a pro-life health insurance company. And I'm a healthcare lawyer. I actually did like a published paper in law school. It was like a tiny little journal, but the paper was on the Affordable Care Act was getting, there was a contraceptive mandate. It was the most highly litigated piece of that law. And that law is, what basically governs and dictates and determines the entire healthcare industry in the United States right now, outside of like Medicare. And so I'm like very familiar with like, this is like what I went to law school for, is like healthcare law. And I'm like, there's no way you can make a pro-life health insurance company. That's why, the Green family put up all this money to fight it with Hobby Lobby. They're behind Hobby Lobby. So Hobby Lobby sued the Obama administration, and it kept going up and down to the Supreme Court. And it's like a big deal. And here's this guy that I'm like in men's group with, and he's like, I'm going to make a pro-life health insurance company. You want to join forces? And I was like, it's illegal. You can't do that. I don't know if you know about this thing called the contraceptive mandate. And we literally like went out for taco lunches a couple of times. We're here in San Diego. So it's like, you got to go, go
just
get some
you
tacos,
two.
just the two of us.
Yeah.
And Daniel walked me through, he had actually been at a unicorn company that when the Affordable Care Act was enacted, everybody had to, it totally reshaped the landscape for health insurance companies. So folks who lived through that will remember it like 2x'd the cost of your health insurance. There was a really contentious provision called guarantee issue, which is, I think has bipartisan support now, but back in the day when the Affordable Care Act was enacted, it was, I mean, that's a big reason why, maybe the sole reason why prices skyrocketed. There was a coverage mandate that was contentious.
When was the Affordable Care Act for people listening?
It was 2010, and then it kind of rolled out like 2011, 2012.
Okay.
So it totally reshaped the healthcare landscape.
Because this is something I just wanted to pull out today for people listening is like, this is your world. You know it intimately well. You've got it's been evolving over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
This landscape that we live in now, and people, especially employers, they don't think about it until it's game time, until it's decision time. But you've got you're steeped in the law. You've been experiencing this, so this is just important. It's just important context because all of us need healthcare. We as employers are making healthcare decisions for our people, and there's these massive forces that we actually have some input into. We're not these helpless victims downstream of them, but you're starting to unpack a little bit of behind the scenes that we have to know. There's
a lot, and I mean it goes back all the way to the 1960s with Medicare reform and everything. The Affordable Care Act comes out, all the insurers are kind of panicking, right? They don't really know how to react and how to create. And then a couple of insurers said, well, let's try to sort of reclaim and restore what like pre-Obamacare or Affordable Care Act is the same thing, pre-Obamacare coverage. And they went one particular route. It's called short-term limited duration plans, which you could still underwrite and kind of maintained roughly the similar cost structure. And Daniel actually worked for a unique company that said, let's go this other route. Let's try this thing that's never been tested before. It was unique packaging of products. And it worked. And it grew to $1 billion company. They sold to United. And he had a front row seat help building that product on the actuarial team. And then he left there and had a career doing actuarial consulting. So then his pitch to me over tacos was, I know how to do this. I've built a unicorn. Like everybody's thinking about the Affordable Care Act type plans because that's where most people get their coverage through their employer or on the individual marketplace. But there's this sort of niche market that people don't think about where you can do it. And he told me how it works. And I go, shoot, that's a great idea. And then I'm overlaying, in my head, I'm thinking through my experience being at the law firm, and I've represented, like, you name it, anybody that touches the healthcare industry, I've represented them or I've been across from them on transaction and compliance, side of things primarily. And my experience I was at the law firm I was in law firm practice for about 8 years. And what I learned primarily from there is the payer in this healthcare system that we've got set up is that, like, if you follow the dollars, it all starts at the payer. So what does that mean? If you've got the money, follow the money, you've got control, you've got power, right? So
when you say the payer, can you just clarify? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it's private insurance, it's Blue Cross, Blue Shield, United, Cigna, Aetna, whatever. Or it's Medicare, federally funded payers. But they get to dictate who gets services, how they're going to incentivize what kind of care you get. Mm-hmm. And if you have good people up there helping make those decisions, you get good outcomes and good, it all trickles down. If you have people that are, have different values than us or bad people, then that's going to trickle down to the whole system. So I'm thinking through that in my head, and Daniel's coming to me saying like, let's do a pro-life health insurance company. And I'm thinking, if you want to really have an impact on the way healthcare is delivered, and you really want to build a culture of life in this country, we have a tremendous opportunity to do that by being the payer. Because the payer can, in a lot of ways, influence how care is delivered. So we could say, yes, we do want to pay for NAPRO technology. We want to promote that. If we see one of our members has a diagnosis that indicates infertility, or sometimes infertility is given as a diagnosis, right? It's really a symptom. There's an underlying issue. And we can reach out to that member and say, hey, are you aware of this alternative to IVF that's actually as effective or more effective than IVF, that actually treats the underlying condition? We'd actually like to help steer you in the right direction, and we want to pay for it. I mean,
that's incredible.
That's a game changer.
It's a total game changer. And it's not, like you said, it's fertility, it's abortion, it's also end of life. And the number of treatments and healthcare, solutions, it's pretty expansive what you guys can have an influence on. Yes. As the payer. I appreciate you putting it that simply, because it's like, yep, if you're paying for it, you can decide what you're paying for, what you're not paying for, how much you're paying for. Yeah. So he's got this vision. He's been at a company that's made it happen before. He's doing his visionary thing and recruiting you. You're a lawyer. And I think generally lawyers make great entrepreneurs because y'all are expert at mitigating risk.
That's really interesting. So we're
I was going to say,
we avoid risk. Like that's like, we hate risk. That's why we're good at mitigating risk maybe, but it also makes you a terrible entrepreneur because we're so type A and we want to like keep to it. And I'm appreciating, maybe you're getting back to this. Your original question was sort of like, what were the conversations you had? When did you know? Yeah. Right. Maybe that's what you're getting back to. And I 100% had that, like, look, I was at a big law firm, it was kind of, in a lot of ways, like a cushy job. I was making, a good salary where my wife can stay home. I can afford a home in San Diego. My wife homeschools our kids. I mean, it was, and to think of putting that on hold to try something new, like it's terrifying in a way. Yes. But I think, I said this before, I think we hit record here. Like, I really feel like Daniel and I were ordained for this in a lot of ways. And I don't say that in like a prideful way. That's like, I think that's actually maybe a humble thing to say. Is like, I don't deserve, like, I don't qualify for this. I can't do this on my own, but I can recognize it. Like, I really believe God has like picked us and equipped us to do this. I actually had, Nick, like a little, I don't know if you call it like a vision. I had an experience in prayer, and I was praying about this with Daniel. We were at Catholic Answers. They let us use some office space early on when we were just moonlighting on our day jobs. So we're in the chapel in Catholic Answers, and I'm just like praying about this, and it was hard because I had a wife and kids at the time, and to think about. You had 4 kids. We had 4 kids at the time, yeah. And I had turned down other opportunities, like there were other opportunities to go work at law firms that where they're either doing religious liberties stuff, or I can work with friends who share my values. And on paper, that would have made sense as a career move for me, but for some reason, it just didn't interest me. And like in hindsight, I think it was God, using these little, our emotions, our, intellect, our attractions and desires to kind of steer me in the right direction. So I'm at a big law firm, and I was at the big law firm. I'm moonlighting. We're at Catholic Answers, and I had this vision where this is going to sound silly because it was like a little private thing, but this is what happened. I had a vision where I'm like rock climbing right? And I'm like clinging to the wall and I'm trying to hold on so hard and I'm afraid that I'm going to fall. And God's asking me to like let go. But what I'm holding on to is this corporate career, this law firm life, which I hated. Like I didn't like it, you know? And it was like, all right, God, I trust you. I'm going to let go. And I let go and I realized I'm like 2 feet off the ground. So it's like, what the heck was I holding on to, you know? And there's kind of a realization of like, God's kind of given me everything that I have here. It's not like I've worked so hard. I mean, you do work hard, but it's not like I merited this and I deserve this and I need to hold on to it and protect it. Otherwise, I'm going to, fall. It's like I'm 2 feet off the ground. So what was I afraid of in the first place? And as soon as I let go, like God's hand just lifts me up to like, higher than I can even imagine going. And so that was might sound silly, but that was like a real affirmation for me to be like, what the heck am I holding on to? Like if I'm doing this for job security and like whatever, like who cares? If God's calling me to do this, I need to 100% trust that he's going to have graces for me to do it.
Yes. Can I just thank you for sharing that? I think it's beautiful. And you were in intentional discernment at that point. You're like hands open, like, Lord, what do you have? Like, how long was that discernment for you? Because there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people listening, entrepreneurs and build businesses where there's big decisions to be made. There's big discernment. You're in an industry that operates a certain way that you want to disrupt, or people listening to this who are entrepreneurial in nature at a corporate job they also don't like. And they're like, what am I going to do to discern the next steps here, Lord? Do you really want me here? Like,
I mean, it's almost like discernment's almost like I'm going to come up with this on the fly. So it might be totally wrong and you could tell me if it's wrong, but I think discernment's probably like networking, where a lot of people think to do it when they need something. But the reality is like, you need to be doing it like all the time. Like you build your network, it's got to be organic. And then when you want to make a career change, it's like, oh, I've been networking this whole time. I have a lot of great connections. Whereas a lot of people are like, oh shoot, I need to make a career change. I'll start networking. There's a networking event. Like,
I love
tomorrow,
it. I actually think that's actually a great analogy. And I think specifically as Catholics, we don't, we kind of maybe like have intense sprints, And so whether it's around discernment, like we have discernment periods or we kind of have these more intense, and it's a beautiful seasonality of the church, but just taking the networking angle at it, it's like, it is one of those, it's a habit of this. It's a habit of the discernment's a habit of the soul. And it's something that like, Lord, is this what you're calling me to do today in this conversation? So, okay, that's a great, you're in this kind of pretty constant state of discernment.
Yeah. I would say like very, very like intentionally, I mean, in a sense it lasted 8 years, the whole time I was at, so I'm in law school and I did well in law school, and the career services office is like, you got to go, if you're doing well, you got a chance to be at big law. That's like what you got to do. And I had no desire going into law school to do like big law. It was never a thought in my head, but I'm like, okay, like, I guess this is what I got to do. So I get to the big law firm and it's like, I do not like this. I remember, I have like a distinct memory. People that know me know this story. It's stuck out in my head. I'm with all the partners who have like made it. They're successful in our group and they're bragging about their cars. And it was like late at night and I'm just like, I just checked out. I'm like, what the heck are these guys talking about? I do not want to be like anybody at this table in 20 years. Why am I here? Yeah. And that plus, growing a family and it's a demanding job. There's a lot of moments where I'm talking to my wife about, this is not long-term for us. Like we need to figure out what God wants and why he's got us here.
Yeah.
And it was hard. Like 8 years is a long time to do that.
Totally.
But in hindsight, I needed those formative years to like really dive into the belly of the beast, understand the industry from that perspective, cut my teeth in that space so that I had the expertise that I have now to be able to do this. So I think maybe 8 years of just being like, God, why am I here? Like, use this, please.
Yes.
And then, like more acutely, it's probably like a 2 to 4 month, like, hardcore discernment process where, and then involves like crunching numbers and like running the budget and talking to my wife and being like, can we do this? Can we do this?
Yes.
Do we have enough savings where I can leave the law firm,
Okay. So this is, what security did you have when you quit? Because there was a capital raise part. I mean, we'll get into that in a second, but like, yeah, you've got
naivety was my biggest security, I think.
Which is impressive as a
we thought so. Like Daniel and I it's like pro-life health insurance company. That's like, we should be able to pitch that to and we're in Southern California. There's a lot of, individual wealth here, a lot of affluence. We were convinced that we could I think we were trying to raise $7 million. We thought we were going to try to raise $7 million, and we thought we were going to be able to do it we quit our jobs April 1st. So April, May, June, July. I think we gave ourselves to July to raise $7 million. Totally unrealistic. It never happened. We realized $7 million was the wrong number. So we basically had
quit before though. Quit the job before you had it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, we tried
that's
to
worth
do,
saying. It's like, that's a pretty big, you discern up to a certain point, it pencils out on paper, you kind of have this plan, and then you take a leap of faith.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. My dad always says, like, sometimes you got to throw your hat over the fence and just like start like commit, throw your hat over, and then you got to go get it, no turning back. It's like,
praise God.
Yeah. Well, so we tried moonlighting for like a month or two, and we realized pretty quickly, like, our jobs are too demanding to be able to do this. And if we're going to do this, we need to do it right, and we need to commit full time to it. So we had savings kind of banked up to get us through that time. And fundraising, by the way, didn't work at all like we expected. We thought it was like, you gather commitments, and then all of a sudden, like, the money comes in on your pre-seed round, and like, that's when you go. But really, it's like, you're collecting checks here and there, and then like, you're cashing the checks and using them to pay your overhead. And then all of a sudden it's like, I ran out of savings. We need to start paying ourselves a salary. And it's like, it's messy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's a total,
I've done it a fair bit.
Step by step.
Yep.
So that was, so that, I mean, truly, like, the naivety that we had in some sense was, we had, like, ultimately we had confidence, and we were ultimately right in like big picture that, like, this is a big deal. It will get funded. God is calling us to this.
Yes.
We had conviction there. All of the ways that we thought we were going to get to that big picture were wrong, but the big picture vision, I think, was right.
Yes. So you guys are realizing you probably miscalibrated how much money you need. You're doing stuff more scrappy than you thought. You and Daniel are kind of slogging through, but your eyes are on this vision that you deeply believe in and you've been called. Rather than unpacking every step of the early fundraising journey, what were some of the big moments in that? And then what advice would you have for people that are raising capital, at various stages of the stack? Anyways, we'll take it from there.
Okay. Yeah. Early fundraising is, I think, super, super hard because probably everything you're doing is wrong, right? Like, you just have to get out there and start doing stuff, like something. And you're probably doing it wrong. We did it wrong. Our first deck was atrocious. And it was hard to hear people say, like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is my baby.
Right.
This is me.
And y'all are
like,
smart
I just
professionals.
quit my job for this. And by the way, it's all right.
Yeah.
like I kind of joke, like, we thought we needed $7 million and everybody was like, everybody that knew what they were talking about in the startup space was like, that's the wrong, like, you can't raise $7 million on an idea. They were all right. But we were also right. Like, we actually ultimately did need $7 million, but we had to think about it differently and approach it differently. We had to raise 1, and then we had to raise 4, and then, so you wind up realizing, it's a humbling process. But so, like, the hardest thing, like, that I felt like was we must have given like well over 100 pitches before we got our pre-seed closed. And every pitch, half of the pitches you give are just like you're talking to people who are smarter than you or in this space, and you're asking for feedback and thoughts and advice. And if you listen to the advice everybody give you, it's contradictory. You ask one person one thing, they tell you something, and the next person next day tells you the exact opposite. So you're getting these data points that don't make any sense. You're all over the place. You're like a ping pong ball, and you're just bouncing around, And early on, none of the data makes sense. And then after, I mean, it just takes time and patience. And you start to realize like, oh, there's a pattern here. I'm bouncing around, but I'm going generally in this direction, you know? And that helps. And then it all kind of starts to make sense. But when you're in that moment, in that chaos, it's like a week of like, nothing makes sense. It's just hard. And part of it is like, we always say like, there's a venture playbook and like, you kind of have to play by those rules. You have to know the rules well enough to play within them, and also well enough to know where these don't apply to me because I'm not a tech founder. I'm a health insurance founder, and it's different. But you also have to know like,
that's important. I think that's an important call. Like there's an early stage venture playbook. There's a private equity capital. There's playbooks for raising capital at these various points of inflection.
Yes.
And then there's an industry overlay.
Yes.
Which you don't typically get unless you find a pretty niche mentor or somebody specifically who's done it before, which is really valuable. So I just think that for anyone,
that's totally true. So it's like for us, the big thing, I would say one of the big things was like, we're trying to raise $7 million. And it was like, nobody's taking you seriously because nobody raises $7 million out of the gates.
Yeah.
So we had to rethink and it's important because you're pitching to venture funds. They know how this works, or at least they have an idea of what they want to bucket you in certain categories. And they say, oh, well, you don't have any sales or revenue yet. You're still putting together your founding team. You got a great idea. That's pre-seed. Yep. Pre-seed is like $500,000 to $1 million, something I don't know what it is, and it's at X valuation. So if you're outside of the parameters of that, you need to at least know that you're outside of the parameters so you can tell the story of why you're an exception.
Yep.
We didn't even know that. Yeah. And that was, Scent helped us define a lot of that, just like bumping into people who could tell us, hey, nobody's taking you seriously. Try for $1 million. Can you break this up into $1 million?
Yeah. So the Scent ecosystem was helpful in kind of orienting the pitch and
totally recalibrating. Yeah.
Okay.
We stripped it down to, we went back to the drawing board. And it's hard because at the same time, like you're pitching to venture funds and you're pitching to angel investors. Angel investors are typically successful in business, but they aren't always helpful to calibrate your deck or, for introduction into the ecosystem of what startups need to look like. Because, they may or may not have had a startup or been in the startup space. They just have money and they want to invest in good ideas, right? Yep. So you're getting like these conflicting ideas. So yeah, we talked to folks in the Scent network. There was one person in particular, actually 2 or 3 people from the Scent network that told us $7 million is the wrong number. I keep going back to that just because it was like, it's a funny example of like how we were wildly wrong.
Yes. And I think it's one of the truisms that a good mentor of mine has shared is it always takes twice as long as you think and costs twice as much as you think. But there's this, from your like strict dollars budget, but then there's also this other side of you could be overinflating how much you actually need. Yeah. And what I've actually experienced through the years is, there's a way to be scrappier.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really healthy challenge from people who've made it before. That's like, well, you're at this stage, like you could be scrappier. Or, hey, I'll give you this much money, but I'm going to give it to you in chunks. In smaller chunks so that you have this much in your bank account and not this much in your bank account because money you have tends to get spent. And it's like these little learnings that are like actually incredibly fundamental and require an incredible amount of maturity to actually grow at the right times, the right stages. It's like you guys were pruned from a $7 million budget down to a $1 million budget to start. And you probably did things differently.
Yeah.
If you had $7 million in your bank account, you might not be operating in, you guys have been really successful over like last year of breaking through barriers. So anyways.
Yeah. I tend to think that we would have done well faster with 7 million, but I think this is part of the like rules that we got to play in is we had an enormous amount of confidence in ourselves because we know ourselves. And like, we were working in an office together with each other. And like, I trust Daniel immensely. Yeah. And he trusts me, and I know that he trusts me. So we were convinced that we could get from 0 to 60 with a $7 million budget. But what we had to do when we went to pitch this to other people who didn't know us, it wasn't enough to just say like, trust us, we can make this happen. We had to say, give us $1 million, we'll get to this spot.
Yeah.
And then once we've de-risked the investment at this stage, then we'll try to raise the next tranche. And then once we've done, accomplished this and de-risked the investment further at this stage, it's the next tranche.
Yes.
And we just didn't, we were a lawyer and actuary, man. Like we don't know this stuff. We know how to actually make it work.
Yeah.
We had the business plan that it's like the unsexiest business plan, lawyer and actuary, right? Like
it's great.
Unsexiest business plan, but it works.
Yes.
It makes economic sense. We know it works. So,
and you're in your next round right now. Like you're closing your next round soon.
Yep. Yep.
So you're hitting the milestones you laid out, which is not a given, a given by any stretch.
Yeah.
I know, just being your friend, like you've had some serious headwinds.
And we have. Yeah.
So maybe just, okay, I'm gonna pull the lens back and throw it on a bit of a bigger direction if you're cool with that. Mm-hmm. Shifting gears here. We all touch the healthcare industry in some respect. And there's all sorts of problems. We don't need a full inventory of the problems. But a lot of people that believe in pro-life, they feel stuck or trapped or kind of helpless, either as a family or as an employer. Mm-hmm. So can you just maybe describe some of the forces that are at play, some of the biggest systematic things at play, maybe from a family, from a family's perspective, and then from an employer's perspective? Because you got a lot of people that'll be listening to this who run companies, who lead families, and who are looking for solutions, and like to understand things. So just a little bit of your lens, because you see all the angles here.
Okay, I mean, the big thing to understand, as we touched on earlier, is right now the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which is also known as Obamacare, is basically controls health insurance as it exists in the United States today, right? So if you have what's called major medical health insurance, which is what virtually everybody has, it's what we're mandated to have. There's actually a mandate on the books. The penalty for not having major medical is $0. So it's kind of toothless, but everybody has to have major medical insurance. Major medical insurance is governed by and controlled by the Affordable Care Act. That right now requires every insurance to offer at no cost sharing obligation the full range of FDA certified and approved contraceptive coverage or contraceptive prescriptions. It includes abortifacients. It includes sterilization procedures, right? So that's, for people that are pro-life, that's the big obvious boogeyman, right? Now, there are some narrow exceptions to that, right? Hobby Lobby fought for an exception. The problem with, I wouldn't say the problem with Hobby Lobby's exception, because Hobby Lobby did a great job, and we feel so honored to sort of, in a way, be standing on their shoulders doing what we're doing. Mm. But the reason why we have to stand on their shoulders to do what we're doing is because the exception is so narrow. It's available to religious employers, right? So if you work for a religious employer, that's great. But the religious employer has to be able to go petition whoever is underwriting their plan or administering their plan to say, please write a special plan for us, right? How many
small, medium-sized businesses are not doing that?
Good luck, right? Yeah. Good luck going to Blue Shield and saying like, hey, can you write something special for us? It's like, go pound sand, So it's tough for small, medium-sized businesses or businesses that just aren't convicted, right? And how many Americans are religious and have these beliefs and also work for an employer that is religious and has those beliefs, who's also large enough to have clout with the bukas of the world and are convicted enough to go to bat for you? Like, that's a pretty small, that's a lot of filters.
Yes.
So that's a big one. One other thing I would just say, like macro level, is something that we have to be really careful of. And I might get myself in trouble here because I'll get into some thorny topics, but
you're good at it. You're not scared.
Medicare, anytime you have the federal government, and I'm not like a anti-government person, but anytime you do have the federal government handing out dollars, Medicare program, Medicaid, they're controlling, and with the Affordable Care Act, they're subsidizing.
Yep.
They're subsidizing the care, right? It always comes with strings attached, right? So the way our Constitution works in the United States, the federal government has very limited power. One of the ways that they get power is when they spend money, right? So that's why when the federal government, people don't know this, but federal government paid for our interstate highway system. Well, when they did that, they said, we'll pay for it if you agree to have the drinking age 21 in your state. It's a state-by-state issue, but it's federalized because the federal government tied it to spending. It's the same thing in healthcare. When the federal government pays for healthcare services, they also get to dictate the way those services are paid. This goes back to the beginning of our conversation, which is if you want to have influence in the healthcare system, look to the payer. The payer has the influence because they start with the full capitated dollar, right? So that's something just to keep in mind. And I'm not saying Medicare is bad or Obamacare is bad. I think there are elements of it that are very problematic, and it's goes back to the way that the economics have been structured, right? That are sort of problematic. And I think as long as we have the government paying for healthcare services, we're going to be dealing with these sticky issues, right? I mean, this goes like there are tentacles
paying or directly subsidizing in some way. Yeah, you have a patient that goes in that their insurance company's going to be covering it. The government's going to be backing some of that. Cost of care can go up, and you're not even seeing it as the person can, using the care, and watch the cost go up. And
and I'll give you a crazy example, Nick. There was I think it was Catholic Health Initiatives had an employer-sponsored plan. It was fully funded, so it's a Catholic company. It's their pot of money that pays for their employee benefits.
Yep.
It was administered by, I want to say Blue Shield or something like that. It was administered by a third-party administrator that was a secular company that also had an insurance arm. The insurance arm of the third-party administrator received federal funding for ACA coverage. That's sort of backdrop. One of Catholic Health Initiative's employees' children wanted to undergo gender reassignment surgery. The federal court ruled that Catholic Health Initiatives had to pay for that service because there's a section of the Affordable Care Act that says you can't discriminate against certain people, and that's considered a discriminatory service. The Catholic health system on its own would be able to claim a religious exemption, but because the plan was being administered by a third-party administrator who also had a separate insurance arm who accepted federal funds, it said they were subject to the Section 1557, which is an anti-discrimination provision of the Affordable Care Act, and they're required to pay for that. Now, I think that's been overruled, but a federal court ruled that, and I say that because that's an example of how far the tentacles can go when there's payment coming from a government.
Yes,
for these services.
No, that's a pretty clear example, convoluted way to get to the payer has the power.
Right. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's a pretty. I think that's a pretty clear print. So let's fast forward, and you've got kind of your employer lens on right now. Your small, medium-sized company, you're growing. You've got dozens of employees or hundreds of employees, and you're a Catholic leader, and you want to make sure you've got a policy and a health insurance program for your people that is in line with your values.
Yeah.
What do people experience today, and what are you guys providing?
So there's a couple great resources out there today for these folks. Rita Trust, Christian Brothers, they've made plans available to these small employers. Affordability aside, they've structured the plans to be fully compliant with Catholic values. I've heard, I haven't looked at affordability. I've heard people say that it's tough. It can be tough. But hey, like if you're convicted about it and you believe abortion is murder, let's go. There's Catholic Benefits Association gives a lot of employers access to these plans, helps them set up plans that are aligned with their Catholic faith. The problem with some of these is, and it's not a problem with the entities, it's a problem with the way everything's regulated, is a lot of them can only offer, they're limited. So I forget which ones, if it's Christian Brothers or Rita Trust. I think it's only available to nonprofits. Some of them are only available if you're explicitly a Catholic organization. So if you're just a Catholic owner of a secular business, you might or might not qualify. Some of them are not available. There's a threshold of like how many employees you have to be able to access them. So all great options, but not always available to every employer.
Yep.
The other thing that's available now is what's called an ICHRA, individual healthcare reimbursement arrangement. So employers can basically give their employees a stipend to go shop for coverage. Now, the coverage that's available on the marketplaces right now are all paying for the bad stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal, but it at least removes the employer one level from paying directly for, abortions and that kind of thing. And it depends, what state you're in, whether abortion's getting funded or not. So that's another option. I think that's the wave of the future. Presidio,
I was going to ask about that as like trends that are coming, because I've heard that the ICHRAs as like employers don't want.
It's such a dumb model that we've got right now.
Well, so yeah, I mean, like let's just like so you're imagine you got a bunch of entrepreneurs running businesses, running teams, listening to this, like. I hate it every year when we have to come up and do a deep analysis on what plans we got to choose and switch. It's a very important decision. It's a big dollar decision, and it's a distraction against what we're trying to do with our mission for the companies I run. So like, can you just, what are you seeing as macro trends moving in the environment? And then what, as Presidio, what are you guys doing to skate to where the puck's going to be?
Okay. So, geez, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
So there's a history to this in the United States, right? So there was, after World War II, we were trying to control inflation. So we put salary caps. There's like a federal salary cap on how much people could make. In connection with that, employers were trying to attract people and they're trying to offer competitive benefits. And that's where they started doing employer-sponsored coverage. It's like, hey, we can't increase your salary, but we can give you more benefits.
Private companies had a salary cap on employees. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just a helpful paradigm to say, like, that's what this is birthed out of.
Yeah, that's what this was birthed out of. So now we find ourselves, like, if you take, like, we take it for granted, but you actually step back and think about it, it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers.
I think about it every year around October.
I mean, you're making these decisions, right?
Yeah.
Number one, it's crazy that your health insurance as an employee is tied to your employment, right? You've got your health insurance. A lot of people choose their health insurance based on their primary care provider or where they want to deliver babies or whatever. And then you lose you switch and average, like the average employee lasts for like 3 years, and then you're on to your next job and you have to switch insurance when you switch your jobs. Like, how
everyone hates it.
Is that? Why?
Everyone hates it.
But we don't even think about it. I think we just take it for granted because we've been steeped in it. We've grown up in it. And then from the other perspective, well, I guess let's keep it in the lens of the employee. Why? This is such an intimate, like, there are ethical implications. You're vulnerable when you're interacting with the healthcare system. Why would you want your employer to limit what insurance options you can have? There's a convenience factor, maybe. Like I think that's probably part of it. And we've become accustomed to, like, I'm going to select between 4 menu options.
Yeah.
That my employer offers, where there's dozens or potentially hundreds of options you could really be choosing from if you went out into the market and you could get something that's exactly right for your family.
Yes. And there's some benefit you could see from the insurance perspective to have a pool that's risk mitigated, because you're going through employers where you're just going to get a whole crop of people of varieties of types.
Yeah.
Whereas individuals can self-select, hey, I'm going to be doing these sort of practices, preventative practices. Like, I don't need this level of insurance with this level of premium. So there's from a consumer standpoint, makes no sense.
Yeah.
0 sense.
And this is case in point. I went to a small law firm and I was like the youngest associate, like by far, at the law firm. And they had options for me, and they were all Cadillac plans because it's all older people who needed to utilize care a lot, and they wanted super low deductibles with super high premiums. And I'm like trying to afford a house and like grow my family. I'm like, I need the opposite.
Yeah, I'll take the check.
Who made the decisions for what I get to choose? It's the employers.
Right.
So anyway, it's kind of a silly. And if you go, so
we can talk about this all. I know this is
a big issue. This is a big issue.
But it's kind of changing and shifting in the landscape with these ICHRAs, right?
Yeah, so the ICHRAs allow employers to basically give your employees a stipend to go shop in the individual markets for coverage, and it's tax reimbursable, it's tax advantaged, and it basically frees it. It's like going from what's it called? Before we had 401ks, what was a pension plan? It's like going from a pension where the employer sets up a retirement plan for you to a 401k account where it's like, we just give you a pre-tax stipend, or we'll match it or whatever, or maybe we don't contribute anything, but we've got an account ready for you, and you figure out how to invest your money. You figure out how to pay for retirement. It's on you. Why? That makes all the sense in the world.
100%.
And I think we're seeing the same thing right now. We're like way behind the times with it, but we're seeing the same shift right now in the healthcare space. So we're seeing insurance. I think companies are going to start. I mean, we're already seeing a rapid rise, but it's still like early adoption. And employers are, I think, right. I don't blame them. They're kind of looking to their left and the right and saying like, is my competitor doing this yet? Is my competitor doing this yet? I don't want to be the first one to stick my neck out. But I think as soon as we start, and we are
because you're forcing work on the employees to go find the plans.
That's part of it. Yeah, I mean,
there's the convenience.
It's kind of like we're all like we're on the teat right now. Yeah. It's easy, and we're coming to a point where it's like there's a better option. It's like St. Paul's, like it's like get off the teat. Like I got a steak for you over here. There's a better option. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, and there's a weaning process. But like, this is maybe that was inappropriate to say. But
no,
I think that's what's going on.
No, it's you're from milk to meat. That's like a pretty clear. Like I think you're talking about a shift that's happening in the landscape right now, and Presidio would be well positioned by offering something that's completely values aligned for Catholics and lots of Christians to say, hey. So do you think ICRAs are the way of the future? Like you think of the next?
I think some form of that system has got to work. I'd like to see ICRAs. ICRAs are pretty limited right now. So for example, like Presidio's initial product wouldn't be ICRA qualified. We can be tax advantaged through a different section of the Internal Revenue Code, but it's not ICRA. So we'd like to see that expand. I mean, they I think with the One Beautiful Bill, I'm not an expert in this, but I think One Beautiful Bill opened up ICRAs for like DPC care, direct primary care arrangements, which it's catching on quite a bit because people get more time with a provider who has fewer patients and can kind of get to know them better. Mm-hmm. So we're starting to see a little bit of loosening of that. I think some form of what we know now as the ICRA system will be the way of the future. It's employee autonomy, right?
Yep.
I gotta think that works. I mean, maybe there's like, there are big powers at play that are working towards a centralized system in healthcare too. Yep. So maybe that's why ICRA would not work. But I think if things work as I think they should economically play out, ICRA makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Zooming back on that, like trends that you see. So that's from an insurance perspective. Do you see other trends in healthcare right now that are important I'm thinking specifically for business owners that are leading teams of people, other things in the healthcare space that you'd say, hey, these are major movements you see, whether it's actually on the provider side and the sorts of services are being provided, or anything you'd say, because I love providing a perspective for the people listening on where the world's going, and there's so much change going on. So what are some trends you see
for employers specifically? So this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse right now. So Presidio is individual market coverage. So we've got an option that can be available to employers, but that's not our bread and butter. So it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Trends that I would say I'm seeing big picture, like people are caring about different stuff. So I just mentioned direct primary care. So people want, and I think it's like a sexy sort of, attractive feature as a benefits package is like, to do, gym memberships or like alternative arrangements and stuff like that. Direct primary care is a big one. I think there's a lot that can be done. One thing that's really interesting from a Catholic perspective too, that we're seeing a lot more emphasis on is there's a lot of pushback on the IVF industry right now. I think that's starting to get peeled back a little bit. So I don't like phrasing this as an alternative to IVF, but there's NAPRO technology, which, if you as a Catholic business owner can make sure that's covered in your benefits package, like that'd be awesome. And then just resources available like Catholic Benefits Association. Like if you're an employer, like you should probably be working with Catholic Benefits Association, see if they'll like run an audit of your program to see like how Catholic is it? Is it not paying for the bad stuff? Is it paying for the good stuff? Is it appropriately aligned? Can you work with, there are Catholic practices that are popping up that make it super easy. My Catholic Doctor is a nationwide telehealth service, and telehealth is a huge unlock. Like we talk to them, they've got fertility cases that they've treated from soup to nuts via telehealth. It's like they've got, they can say, okay, I've looked at your chart, the woman's chart. They'll look at the chart. They'll say, I probably have some hormone deficiencies. I'm going to go send you in. I'm going to put a script in for you to get blood work. You got a Quest lab down the street. You get your blood work done. They read it remotely. They can figure out what the issue is. They can refer you to a specialist to go get surgery if you need it, or hormone therapy if you need that. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And it's available to everybody. It should 100%. Be. I mean, and so if you're,
Kathleen's a part
as
of
an employer, Kathleen and Greg Bertelman are founders of My Catholic Doctor. They're absolutely wonderful. We're really stoked to partner with them at Presidio. So everybody who's on Presidio gets access to My Catholic Doctor. But if you're an employer and you've got an employer-sponsored coverage, try to work with My Catholic Doctor. Like, why not? They're excellent. They're nationwide. They can do so much, and they save you a ton of money, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Like if you can, the amount of services that you could do via telehealth now that you used to have a brick and mortar office and overhead and everything for, it's unbelievable. And they're doing it all. They're right on the cutting edge of all that.
Yes. Okay. I love it. Love it. I think like I said, it's not top of mind for most business owners, employing teams, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of people. And just to know these options out there, I like to say we're like living in a world of so much information. We're just constantly drowning and feeling like behind. Mm-hmm. And so hearing from you and folks like you that have the long lens perspective on what's out there is just so helpful for us making good decisions, which is like the top thing we do as entrepreneurs. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna shift gears again. All right. If you're good with that.
Go. Buckle up.
From a business perspective, with Presidio, y'all had a plan, aggressive plan to raise $7 million, went to the kind of venture world, pre-seed funding, raised the first tranche and now the second tranche, and you're in this. That's from the capital raise side. What are the other key decisions you made that were really great? I'm thinking people decisions, go-to-market decisions, and like, how are you going about making decisions? I know you're super thoughtful, you're strategic, you guys are, experts in this industry. And I'm trying to extrapolate insights for our audience for, these key decisions at these inflection points of business. So
I mean, the people thing, it's almost like cheating, because it's like, I'm not making decisions because I've made a decision to partner with great people. So partnership wise, we talked about before we started recording, like compatibility is huge, competency is huge.
With the co-founder.
With the co-founder, but also with like your early team. Like they're very intimate with your early team,
Yeah.
So
and you almost put we were talking earlier, but like compatibility before even competence. Like both very important, but like, am I gonna love?
They're kind of
They go together, but
they go together. You kind of can't. You almost like can't compromise on competency, because you need to work with somebody who's going to be able to do their job, right? But what we were saying earlier, which I think is really true, is like competency is kind of only important in as much as it goes to compatibility. Because if I had a co-founder that was incompetent, it would make us incompatible. I would get frustrated, right? Like, why didn't you do the job that you said you were going to do? But with and I really think like Daniel and I'm a terrible person to have on the hot seat here talking about like how to hire a great person or how to partner with a great person, because I feel like everything's been so ordained in what Presidio has done. And I trusted Daniel. We had a personal relationship. I knew he was professionally competent. I did grill him on like the business plan and stuff. I wanted to make sure it works, because like I'm putting my family at risk to start this, new venture with him. Yeah. And Daniel says too, and this goes to just like, the personal trust that I have in him. I found out later on that Daniel felt an immense amount of pressure when I quit my job and said, I'm coming aboard. Because Daniel felt like I recruited Bob to this, and now it better not fail.
Yeah.
And I say that because I didn't know Daniel had that, but I think from the personal trust that I had with him, it was a character thing where it's like, we're both going to put our noses to the grindstone and make sure this, like, not out of lack of trust, but because God uses our talents and we need to steward our skills and talents that he's given us.
Yes.
And I knew that Daniel, I knew from a character perspective that Daniel wasn't going to waste his talents and he wasn't going to be lackadaisical. And if something went wrong, he wasn't going to be like, well, I think we might be done here. He's going to be like, what do we need to do? And let's dive in and do it. You know? So that's super important. I would say like, that's like hands down the biggest thing. And again, I know I have friends who are co-founders and they've actually done, I'm thinking of one guy in particular who's part of the Scent community. He's like, I'm trying to find my next co-founder. He had a successful exit. He's trying to find his next co-founder because he knows that's actually more important than finding the next idea. He doesn't even know the idea yet, but he knows I like working for myself. I like being a founder. I need a great co-founder and I'm going to try to find the right person. And then we're going to try to find the right idea. And I think, I've been spared from any of that discernment process because it's been like, it just kind of fell into I wasn't really looking, although I was always trying to say, and this is where I think it's important and going back to like the discernment question. It's like, always trying to give my work to the Lord and say like, how do you want to use my talents? Yeah. And if you do that, I think he blesses you and he gives you the graces you need to do what you got to do.
Yes. I love that. And one other question on the key business decision side, and then we got to get to the rapid fire at the end. I always do rapid fire phrases.
Okay.
It's super fun.
Okay.
One of the things that I've been impressed with you on is just how well your network works. Like you're just really intentional as a friend. A lot of different people. Like, oh, have you met the so-and-so? Like you care for people, but you also have just a great network. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's from the legal profession or what that looks like. But what key decisions has your network helped with? I'm thinking about like you're talking about, from go to market to all the different angles that you guys have taken on fundraising. Pick your angle, but what have you operate a certain way. It's the water in which you swim. I think more entrepreneurs need to just turn that lens on. We don't think network first. Yeah. I don't know if it's a cultural problem or what, but like you do, and it's why you've been so successful in making big decisions well. So how do you use your network in like making really critical decisions?
Our network is really, and like network is a weird word, right? It's like our friends and family that have really been behind us 100% in this. And it's funny you say like my network is not at all I have the worst legal network. Like people ask me for lawyer referrals all the time. And I have to like ask somebody else. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know anybody in this space. And it's kind of funny. It's another way that I think God has ordained this. It's like I went to Steubenville and I developed this wonderful Catholic network and it's incredible and it's all organic and it was totally useless, my entire legal profession. Yep. But it was just like, I've got friends and I love connecting with them and we have core values and we have the same teleology. We're all just trying to be holy and get our families to heaven. And like, that's incredibly binding, So it's totally useless for my legal career, but it's kind of come full circle. It's all of a sudden I'm back in the Catholic space doing a Catholic health insurance company. And all of a sudden it's useful. And it's like, oh God, this is why the network is here. I'll give one example. I don't know if this is what you're getting at, Nick, but like, and it's a lot of, it's using friends as a sounding board as part of it. We pitched to a friend of ours, mutual friend, Mark, who mm-hmm. who's close by here. And I told him this last night. We had a little event and we pitched to him. And the original pitch was we were going to have a 2-tiered network. And it was going to be, if you want to go to a broad, like catch-all network of, just we rent this network of providers, your copay is going to be X. And if you want to go to a preferred network, which is all these Catholic pro-life providers that we're going to identify, we have a lower copay. So we incentivize people to go to the preferred network. And my friend Mark, I'm pitching to, like, we're trying to like pitch him. And he's just like, well, how do you establish who's in the preferred network. Like, is it Catholic? Is it Catholic adjacent? Is it pro-life more broadly? And what does pro-life mean if they're against abortion, but they're pro-contraception? And there's like all of these murky issues. And we were kind of like, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about that. And they're like, and then he's like, and also, why would you limit the network to only pro-life people? Like, that seems silly. If you need, if you need a cardiologist, like, you need a cardiologist. You don't need a pro-life cardiologist. Pro-life's really important for primary care, OBGYN, geriatrics. But like, if you need an oncologist or a specialist or a hand surgeon, like, why would you limit your network? And we were kind of like, yeah, that's a good point, Mark.
That's great.
And we had, and just letting that feedback, not getting defensive and saying like, well, we've thought this through and there's a reason why we're doing it. And aren't you pro-life? And wouldn't you want to support pro-life doctors? We could have gone that route, but just to say, you're right. Let's rethink that and let that sink in. And it's hard to do. Like early on, like I was talking about, you get data points that are all over the place. Your feedback is all over the place. But you have those real relationships and the people that you trust, and you let that sink in. And we had a long conversation after that. And we totally changed the way that we structure our network. Now we've got a broad network, so you can go to any physician in the country. There's over 1 million providers that are in our network specifically, so they'll be a little bit easier to work with. And then on top of that, we've got prolifeproviders.com, where people can go and rate and review providers to help you find pro-life providers. And then you layer that on top of our network. So you still get, it's just still the same outcome.
Yes.
But it's much easier to navigate.
No, I love it. You're just, there's a humility in asking for feedback on something and not having an answer. Because that person, Mark would be very likely to give you feedback again, anytime. He'd be happy to. And having people who you can actually get into the weeds with on something that's like, hey, this is really important for us. I'd love your input. You might not be in the industry I am, which is actually super valuable because you're not operating from the paradigms. I think about like the sorts of, I've tried to outsource focus groups for years because it's a lot of time to run a focus group, to have people and to really get feedback. There's nothing quite like a founder or an owner asking for feedback directly.
Yeah.
The way that you're going to dig, the way that you're going to get to, people can shadow you and learn pretty well, but to try to delegate that, it's just like you're going to be hearing things and you're going to be internalizing things that are totally different. I've just from learning from mentors, like the amount of time that's spent recruiting and getting frontline feedback is far understated in the entrepreneurial. We're kind of building and doing and serving and acting, and like recruiting and feedback could be like the top job of someone at the top of an organization.
Yeah. So I think it was Zach Slayback, who's in the Scent community. He told us, he's like, as a founder, you'll always wear 3 hats. It's people, it's fundraising, and it's product. And the product, I think, is that feedback piece. Like you always want feedback. And I kind of hate that because like I don't want to be raising money all the time. But I think it's probably true.
Basically right. Yeah. Good job, Zach.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I got 2 questions on the integration side. So this whole podcast is about breaking the barrier. And I think we unpacked elements of like, okay, from the actual product and service that you guys provide, there's a very clear integration of faith, like deeply Catholic to the root. We believe in the dignity of life from conception till natural death. We love life no matter how it comes about, or like we're going to love the person that's there in front of us. And that's like as deep as it goes. So from a product design standpoint, it's maybe a bit more obvious. But then there's you, and then there's your life, and then there's the team that you lead and your company culture. So I'd like to just ask, how has your relationship with your wife changed since Presidio?
That's a great question. I would say the first thing, we cheated, right? Like we totally cheated. We did something that we like couldn't. It was like, it's the equivalent of the Egyptians painting the lamb's blood on their lentils, which, lamb's like a sacred animal to the Egyptians. And I'm sorry, not the Israelites painting the lamb's blood on their lentils. And then, the angel of death comes through. So that when they're in the desert wandering and they're like, oh, cucumbers would be kind of nice right now. It's like, nope, can't go back. Like we burned that bridge, So I feel like when I made a decision, on the company side to like do something that integrates my faith explicitly on the business side of what we do, it's like cheating. So I might not be the right guy to answer this question, but it's coming from the law firm life, like the first thing my wife said is like, you are a different person. Just like the stress is gone. I mean, it's still, there's stressful moments, but I know
which is wild. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
At the end of the day, I know that I'm called to be here. Here's another way I cheated. Presidio, from the beginning, I said this prayer, and I would encourage every founder to say this prayer. God, if this is not your will, stop me. Blow it up. I don't want it if it's not your will.
Crush it.
And then, exactly. And why that's a cheat is because then when you're hitting these milestones and you're progressing and you're looking back and you're going, he hasn't stopped me. I guess he wants me to do this. And then you can be more confident in your faith, right? To say, God, give me the grace that I need because this mountain ahead of me seems insurmountable, but I know that you've led me this far and I've asked you to stop me if it's not your will. So I trust it's your will. And I know you're going to give me the grace to go get over that mountain.
Yeah.
So that's
I will say you're describing it like cheating. Like another angle at that might be you picked up a cross. Like it's not fun most of the time, 90% of the time, building something new, being an insurgent in a incumbent market, doing something without a security blanket for your family. Like your wife supported you in that decision and actually felt your peace. Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that there wouldn't be crosses, but you took a cross and then with that, the yoke became easy and the burden became light. Pretty wild.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. But I'm just playing back what you just said because it's worth just like stating it's the water in which you swim. And I just cause I've known you, like I know that, but it's worth just calling out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My wife, I'm not going to say this to toot my own horn, but an observation my wife made is you're leading our family better in prayer. I wasn't doing that well at the law firm because I was, doing different stuff, stressed, had excuses. And now it's like, I know with more confidence. I mean, I do believe God had me at the law firm for a reason, but I know now with more confidence and more direct, barrier breakage. There's a more direct connection between my vocation as a husband and father and my vocation as an entrepreneur and a leader and a co-founder of Presidio. And again, it's a cheat because this is building the kingdom of God in a very explicit way, and not everybody has that in their business. A lot of people are doing, you're witnessing in a secular environment, a secular company, a secular business environment. But
well, I don't think one of the things I've experienced at Red Door running a secular entertainment company is that there's tons of opportunities. The opportunities look different and the world will tell us, oh, that's actually not an opportunity. It's like, wait a minute, the person just had a serious life event. You can pray with them now. Yeah. Nothing is stopping you from that. So I basically think it's drinking the world's Kool-Aid to pretend like you don't have those same.
But it's hard, man. Like I actually remember being on paternity leave and kind of like using paternity leave from the law firm as like a little retreat. And I was reflecting a lot about work and personal life integration. I don't like the word work-life balance, but because I've found that like when I'm firing on all cylinders at work, I'm firing all cylinders at home, and it's not we tend to think of it as like this zero-sum game. I don't think it's like that. It's like somehow the Lord magnifies your time and
Preach.
Your abilities. Yeah. So
yes. No, that's so critical. I've heard that same exact phrase from almost every successful entrepreneur I've talked. Yes. They're like the work-life balance, like there's two things on a scale and you take one off and the other, it's like they've thrown out that, like integration comes up a lot, undivided comes up a lot, like one fueling the other in this positive.
I believe that.
It's like one of the most deepest litmus tests I have of like, am I well calibrated? Because if one's working, my wife should feel it, my kids should feel it, it should get better. Yeah. And then it feels work. Yeah. And you're fired up and you go back to work and kick butt.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. Okay.
A lot of it's weird. And you don't find that often in the corporate world.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It is more zero sum. And I for whatever reason, unpacking it. So, okay, last on the integration side, we could talk about this all day. And I know we got to run in a minute, but what are some habits that keep you grounded? Like what's your, some things on your rule of life? I know it's, a term we use at Scent a lot, but just like, what are some things you're like, man, this is non-negotiable for me.
So you're laughing. I'm laughing because this is like, I'm like moving right now. Our life is in chaos. So like, I haven't been doing a great job in the past 2 weeks of these habits, but I do have habits that are like pretty. I keep to pretty regularly. Prayer life is. I have a couple cheats for prayer life, right? So one is liturgy of the hours. Like, man, that gets you in sync with the whole universal church. You think about every priest and religious praying that with you, and it just puts you in touch with the magnitude of our faith and the community that we have here as a church militant. That's incredible. And you kind of kill two birds with one stone because you're getting scripture time in too. Like, that's awesome. So liturgy of the hours, specifically morning prayer, like start every day with coffee or a pre-workout drink and liturgy of the hours. And my wife's been doing it with me recently, which is
praise God. That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's sweet.
And then we try to do family rosary, as often as we can. We aim for it daily. We miss often, but we at least get a decade in.
Pre-bed?
Yeah, pre-bed.
Yep.
It's ugly. It's a terrible rosary. Like, I've got 6 kids. They're, kids who shouldn't be misbehaving during the rosary are always misbehaving during the rosary. I say like old. They're old enough to do a rosary.
Yeah,
but
sure.
like, it's just like, you know what? We're going to do it.
They'll remember that.
And we just set aside that time for it. I exercise. I take exercise seriously, in the sense that, like, it's important to me to dedicate time. I'm not like a serious exerciser, but I'm serious about setting aside time.
Yes.
To exercise. I do think, there's some stress mitigation that happens there.
It's physiological.
Keeps me going. Yeah. Those are the big ones. Man, you know what? I'll say this one. Do what I say, not as I do, because I'm terrible at this. But we've started doing nighttime prayer too, with liturgy of the hours, nighttime prayer with a brief examination of conscience. That's a game changer, man. You see what you did wrong today, and then you get an action plan together for tomorrow to do better, and you just get these little incremental, opportunities to optimize your life. And I truly believe the reason I stink at it is because it's so powerful. The devil doesn't want me to do it, and he works so hard to get you to not do it. But I think it's really, if there was like one thing I would do really well, I say that, but I stink at it.
No, reviewing the game tape.
Oh,
It's interesting. One of the things I've just been struck by, because I do think this is from repeated examine, is the saints from St. Augustine, even Thomas Merton, the story of a soul, like, they'll recollect their life with such precision. It's clearly divine grace. And I think that comes from how often they're reviewing and improving and saying, Lord, where did I fall short? Where did I? So I do think it's like almost like a gained vision. It's like there's something there.
Yeah.
But no, I also miss frequently on that one. But when I'm on, that one's like, nightly examine for sure. Yeah. Okay, we're shifting to rapid fire.
Okay.
And then we'll close here. Here's how this works.
I'm terrible at rapid fire, man. I've given you so many long-winded answers.
No, it's good. It's good. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say a phrase.
Okay.
You're just going to say whether you agree or disagree.
Okay.
And then just give a one-sentence rationale why.
Okay.
And there's no right answers. There's definitely
always a right answer.
There's definitely wrong answers. I've heard some wild answers to some of these, so I've got a couple of these things on here. So regulation kills innovation.
Oh, man, that's a hard one.
I know. I started with a zinger.
Regulation kills innovation. I'm going to say I disagree with that, because we do need to be grounded. This is one of the reasons that Daniel and I are such great partners. Something to look out for in a partner is Daniel's a visionary and he's going out and innovating, but it also needs to be grounded in doing it right and making sure that we're not just sending, not that Daniel would do this, but as visionaries generally, sending out half-baked ideas into the ether and failing to execute on them. So I think you're saying regulation. I'm interpreting that in some ways as like execution, doing it well. It's got to do it, in a controlled environment. I'll disagree on that one.
I love it. No,
that's why we benefit each other so well, because we are we're like magnets that are kind of like keeping each other, accountable, which is awesome.
I totally see that. All right, we got hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah, that's something that we live by. I don't have a ton of experience on it, so I might not be the best person to answer. But especially early stage, like, you bring somebody on to your team, it impacts the culture, the trajectory of the company, and you've got limited resources to be able to keep somebody on who's not a good fit.
100%. 100%. Healthcare should be run like any other business.
Healthcare should be run like any other business. I mean, I don't know how you mean, like in what sense. I'll say disagree just because it sounds like a preposterous statement. You've got healthcare is such a unique space, in part because of complexities, but I think the reason why it's so unique and the reason why it's so complex is because you're dealing with human life. So it's got to be treated differently.
Yes.
And you've got human life, which is of immeasurable value. And you couple that with these rapid developments in technology where we could pay, if you have access to unlimited capital, you could pay for crazy services to save a baby's life or your child's life or your own life. So healthcare insurance specifically, it's like, that's why there's quite a quagmire, is because is there a moral obligation to save somebody's life if you can at any cost? That's a hard one to answer.
Yep.
And in order to do that, we need the institution of insurance. If we agree, as a collective, that we should pool our funds so that we can afford these extremely high cost technologies that can be life-saving.
Yeah. Or even more costly than what you would be able to afford. Because like
it's absolutely,
because that's like for most people, it's like, okay, the wealth gap is widening, and so more and more people can afford less and less care. Yeah. But these are like really high impact cares that will save lives right, left, and center.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
most people think about, what's funny is most people think about, when we talk to people, we do focus groups, and they say, well, I don't have health insurance. I've got $20,000 in a saving account in case one of my kids breaks their legs and goes to the ER. That's not catastrophic in healthcare. Catastrophic in healthcare is a $2 million NICU baby, a burn unit where you have a 2-month stay to recover from a nasty car accident, a heart attack, cancer diagnosis. These are $1 million plus claims. You absolutely need health. I mean, 99% of Americans need insurance or some vehicle to help them afford that level of care.
Yes. Yes. I saw a stat that health related sicknesses were the number one way that people went into debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Medical debt is the number one source of financial ruin in the United States.
Yeah. All right. 2 last ones. You can't move what you can't measure. Yeah.
You gotta know your enemy before you strike. You gotta know what you're trying to do before you, and that goes back to I think the second question you asked about, regulation stifles innovation. Like I'm a firm believer in trying to size up the problem. Probably too much. If it was just me and I didn't have Daniel help me move along, I would sit with the problem, and be like, let's approach it from this angle and this angle, make sure we know what we're dealing with, and I would never go anywhere.
That's great.
And Daniel's like, come on, you got enough measurements. Let's go.
That's great. That's a great dynamic. All right, last one here. Time is money.
I'm gonna say agree. One of my greatest takeaways from the law firm is what I hated most about it, which is I had to track every 6 minutes of time, 1/10 of an hour. And I had to bill, and I had to write a narrative for each 6 minutes of my time and to prove to the client that it's worth it for them to pay my insanely high big law firm rates that they put on me. You have to prove your value. And what that forced me to do, especially as I'm growing my family, is I've got to be really efficient with my time. And if I'm not being efficient with my time, I'm doing a disservice to my wife, because I could be getting out of work sooner and helping her at the house sooner, or I'm just squandering the talents that God gave me. He's got me here for a reason. I can't be dinking around at work.
Yeah.
I go to work, I get my work done, I'm efficient, and I get home and help my wife.
I love that. I've gotten so many different cool angles at that question. You take it from a literal philosophical sense. People disagree, but it's incredibly practical. You're like, yep, I'm gonna treat every minute seriously, because now I feel like I'm getting in the way of your wife and kids right now. I gotta close this thing. but no, it's incredibly practical. So with that, do you have any advice or encouragement for entrepreneurs who are just in the arena, fighting hard, trying to change something about their industry, trying to fight maybe systems, conceptions, norms that are just, beating them down? Any advice or any wisdom you have for them?
Nothing you haven't already heard. I mean, just have faith, pray. That's if you believe that God is omnipotent and you believe that he is good and you believe that he has put you here in this moment, or even if you don't, just pray. Like, keep me in this moment. If I'm supposed to be here, take me out of here if I'm not supposed to be here. And of course, he's got graces for you to do what his will is. Try to conform yourself to God's will.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crux of how I've gotten to everything I've done. And all of my failures, give it to the Lord, praise God in those failures. All of my successes, give it to the Lord, praise God in those successes. Because at the end of the day, if you believe God's got your goodness in mind, and if you believe he's omnipotent, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. Amen.
Easier said than done. But.
It's easier said than done, but it's deeply true. So if people want to hear more, learn more about Presidio, what you guys are working on, resources out there, where should they go?
You can go to prolife.health. That'll reroute to our website, which is presidiocare.com, but it's easier to spell for most people. And if you want to find, so Presidio is only in Texas right now, I should say that. We're expanding to 5 new states in 2026. We're really excited about that.
Let's go.
But you can join a wait list if you're not in Texas. And if you're not in Texas, check out prolifeproviders.com, which is our website where it's candidly not super useful right now, but it's not useful because we need more people to go on there and rate pro-life providers. It's really a community sourcing tool where we're trying to just get everybody information so that if you move to a new area and you're looking for an OBGYN, you can go on there, find the community rated OBGYNs in the area, and you can find that pro-life doctor. It was born out of like the mom chats. The mom chats are like the most valuable data.
That's how we get all of our
gold,
100%.
So it was designed with this in mind that if somebody is new to an area and they haven't plugged into that mom's chat yet, but they're looking for a doctor, here's how they would be able to find the doctor.
Yeah.
How do you get the information that the moms get access to and bring it to everybody else? Because the moms are like, they're the superpowers behind all this.
100%. For people having their first kid, they kind of don't have that network yet, and it's critical. Well, thank you so much for the time and for just being with us on the podcast here. We'll be talking soon.
My pleasure, Nick. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. I know you hear this all the time from all different podcasters, but if you could like and follow us, it's a big deal. It helps us make more content like this. More people see it. We beat the algorithm. We can reach more Catholic entrepreneurs, help you break the barrier, bring your faith into business, and build something beautiful for the Lord. So please like and subscribe. It'll go a long way. Super appreciate it.